My husband's secret credit card statement arrived, and the payee's name was one I'd never seen before: St. Jude's Hospital Pediatrics. The envelope, a bland off-white thing, had been mixed in with a pile of his business magazines. It was addressed to a Mark Jameson at our address, but at a P.O. box I didn't recognize. A shiver of unease, the kind you dismiss as paranoia, had made me tear it open, rationalizing that it was probably a promotional gimmick, a pre-approved offer sent to a slight variation of his name. I stood frozen in our pristine sun-drenched kitchen, the kind featured in architectural magazines, holding the thin, damning piece of paper. The world, which a second ago had been defined by the smell of freshly ground coffee, the gentle hum of the sub-zero fridge, and the distant, comforting sound of our daughter Sophia practicing her violin upstairs, tilted on its axis. My name is Elena Petrova, and for 15 years I believed I knew the man I married inside and out. We built this life, this beautiful, curated existence in a brownstone in Brooklyn's Park Slope from the ground up. 2 children, Sophia 13 and Leo 10. A shared history that began in a cramped NYU dorm room, eating cheap pizza and dreaming big impossible dreams. A partnership forged in late-night study sessions and the fierce, youthful certainty that we were invincible together. Mark was supposed to be at a client breakfast in Midtown. I was supposed to be finalizing the menu for Sophia's birthday party next weekend. A debate between a macaron tower and a classic Brooklyn blackout cake. I was not supposed to be staring at a credit card bill for an account I didn't know existed, with a single staggering charge for $18,450 made to a children's hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. The rational part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through Wharton and now ran my own small but successful consulting firm, scrambled for a logical, non-catastrophic explanation. A massive, impulsive donation. But Mark handled our charitable giving through our family foundation, and it was all meticulously documented and tax-deductible. This was a personal credit card. A client's child? A favor for a business associate too sensitive to discuss? But he'd never mentioned it, and the amount was too specific, too medical, too final. It screamed of co-pays and specialized treatment. And why a secret card? We had a joint account for all household and family expenses and our own separate accounts for personal spending. A system we'd agreed on early to maintain financial independence and avoid petty squabbles over golf clubs or designer shoes. This was a third account. A hidden one. A deliberately obscured financial stream. My hands trembled, making the paper rustle like a dry leaf in the silent, expensive kitchen. I leaned against the cold marble countertop, my heart hammering a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. This was more than a financial secret. This felt visceral, ominous. The word pediatrics seemed to pulse on the page, a black hole sucking all the light and certainty out of my world. I did something I'd never done before in our 15 years together. I went into his study. It was a sanctum I had always respected. Every couple has their boundaries, and his study with its wall of first-edition novels, the framed vintage map of the world he dreamed of exploring with me, and the faint, familiar scent of his sandalwood cologne, was his. It was his retreat, his intellectual cave. But the rules of our marriage had changed the second I opened that envelope. The pristine, minimalist surface of his oak desk offered nothing. The top drawer, the deep one on the left, was locked. For a moment I hesitated, the ghost of our trust whispering that I should stop, wait for him, ask him. But the image of that hospital's name was burned onto my retina, and the cold, logical part of me knew that if he had a hidden credit card, he had a hidden reason. And if the reason was hidden, he would lie. I found a paperclip in a small ceramic tray, straightened it with fumbling, sweating fingers, and with a clumsy lock-picking motion I'd seen in a thriller, jiggled the cheap, decorative lock until it clicked open. The sound was obscenely loud in the quiet room. Inside there was a folder. Not a digital file, not a password-protected document, but a simple beige legal folder. And inside that, my world ended for the second time that morning. It wasn't more bills. It was a child. A little boy about 6 years old with a shock of dark, unruly hair and eyes that were unmistakably Mark's. My Mark's. There were photos of him in a hospital bed, small and pale against the stark white sheets, smiling weakly up at the camera, his head bald from aggressive treatment. There were other photos of him laughing in a sun-dappled park, being pushed on a swing by my husband, whose face was illuminated with a raw, unguarded joy I hadn't seen in years. There were medical reports, dense with terrifying terminology. A diagnosis of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Treatment plans. Progress charts. Printouts of emails discussing drug protocols and hopeful, tentative prognosis. And at the bottom a birth certificate. The boy's name was Samuel Jameson Richardson. His date of birth was 7 years and 3 months ago. And listed under father, Mark Jameson. My husband. His signature was right there, a confident slash I'd seen a million times on permission slips and mortgage documents. Under mother, Chloe Richardson. The air left my lungs in a whoosh as if I'd been punched. I sank into his leather desk chair, the photos scattering across the polished oak like fallen leaves. 7 years. He was conceived during that awful strained period when Mark was working all hours on the massive Sterling merger, sleeping at the office more often than not, coming home hollow-eyed and distant. I'd been buried in the exhausting, exhilarating launch of my own firm. We were ships passing in the night, stressed, disconnected, our conversations reduced to logistics and calendars. I'd attributed his distance to the immense pressure he was under. I'd bought him expensive espresso makers and worried about his blood pressure. I'd never, not for a single solitary second, imagined it was another woman. Another life. A parallel universe running alongside our own. A son. He had a son. A child who was half him, a child who shared DNA with my own children. And he was sick. Dying. The pieces slammed together with the force of a physical blow, each one a fresh wave of nausea. The business trips to Chicago that always seemed to crop up at the last minute. The donations he'd quietly move from our shared savings account, explaining them away as angel investments in tech startups that hadn't panned out. The times I'd catch him staring into the middle distance during a family movie night with a profound, unnameable sadness he'd always shrug off as, "Just stress, honey, don't worry about it." He wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a father leading a double life, a man protecting his dying child. The magnitude of the lie was so colossal, so layered, that my mind simply couldn't process it all at once. It was an iceberg and I was the Titanic, steaming full speed ahead in ignorant bliss. I heard the key turn in the front door, the familiar sound that usually signaled comfort, the end of the workday, the return of my partner. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I scrambled to shove the photos and papers back into the folder, my movements clumsy and loud. I slammed the drawer shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot, just as he walked into the study doorway. "Elena? You're home early," he said, smiling that easy, charming smile that had first drawn me to him in a crowded lecture hall, loosening his tie. He looked like my husband. He smelled like my husband, of crisp air and faint cologne. He was a complete and utter stranger. I couldn't speak. My vocal cords were paralyzed. I just held up the credit card statement, my arm rigid. The blood drained from his face so completely, so instantly I thought he might faint. His eyes flickered from the paper in my hand to my face, to the slightly ajar drawer of his desk, and the easy, welcoming light in his eyes died, replaced by a flat, hopeless terror. He knew. He knew the jig was up. "Elena," he whispered, his voice cracking, all the confidence gone. "I can explain." Those words. The cliché of every caught liar, every guilty character in every bad movie. They broke the dam inside me. A raw, guttural sound tore from my throat. Explain. My voice was a strangled thing I didn't recognize. Explain what, Mark? Explain Samuel? Explain Chloe? Explain the 7 years of lies you've built our life, our children's lives, on top of. I picked up the beige folder I'd failed to hide completely and threw it at him. It hit his chest and burst open. Photos of his son, my husband as a doting father to another woman's child, fluttered through the air between us like grotesque slow-motion confetti. Explain this. He flinched as if I'd struck him physically. He didn't try to deny it. He didn't try to gaslight me. The evidence was literally at his feet. He just stood there, his shoulders slumping, crumbling from the inside out right before my eyes. He's dying, Elena, he said, the words barely audible, soaked in a grief that was clearly horrifyingly real. He's my son and he's dying. What was I supposed to do? And what are Sophia and Leo to you? I screamed, the pain tearing through me, sharp and blinding. A consolation prize? Practice children? A cover story? Did you ever love us, or were we just the convenient public family, the beautiful props, while you had your real one, your secret family, on the side? Don't say that, he begged, tears finally welling in his eyes and spilling over. He took a step toward me, his hand outstretched. Please don't ever say that. You and the kids are my world. My heart. This was the biggest mistake of my life. It happened once, just once, 1,000,000 years ago. It was a moment of stupidity, of weakness. I ended it with Chloe immediately. I never meant for any of this to happen. Thought it was over. Then she told me she was pregnant, and I was trapped. And then 2 years ago she told me he was sick, and I'm trapped in a nightmare. So you chose to play the hero for them and the liar to us. I spat, the venom in my voice shocking even me. You paid for his treatment with our money. Money that was meant for our children's college funds, for our retirement. You comforted her with our time you stole from birthdays and anniversaries and just ordinary Saturdays. You built a whole other family and you hid it in a locked drawer like it was a dirty secret, like it was something to be ashamed of. Is he ashamed? Is your son something to be ashamed of? It is a secret, he cried, his composure shattering completely. His voice rose to a pitch I'd never heard before. It's a terrible, horrible secret. What was I supposed to do? Tell me, Elena. What was the right play here? Let my son die because I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth? Abandon him? I was trapped. Every single day, trapped between trying to save him and trying not to destroy you. Trying to be a father to him and a father to Sophia and Leo. Trying to be there for Chloe in the worst moment of her life without being her husband. I have been living in hell. You should have thought about that before you slept with her. I roared, all pretense of control gone. The sound of our shouting, raw and violent, must have carried because I heard a door creak open upstairs. Mom? Dad? It was Sophia's voice, thick with sleep and confusion and fear. What's going on? Why are you yelling? We both froze. The anger on Mark's face melted into pure, unadulterated shame and panic. He looked toward the doorway like a trapped animal. I looked at my husband, the architect of this ruin, and I saw the ghost of the boy I'd fallen in love with, buried deep beneath the layers of deceit and despair. And in that moment I hated him for making me hate him. I hated him for forcing this ugliness into our home, for shattering the safe haven I'd worked so hard to build for our children. Nothing, sweetheart, I called up, my voice miraculously steady, a testament to a mother's primal need to protect her young, even from their own father. Dad just dropped a big box of old photos. We're just surprised. Cleaning it up. Go back to bed. Everything's fine. A long, hesitant pause. I could picture her standing at the top of the stairs, her brow furrowed, listening. Then a soft, uncertain, okay. Her door closed quietly. The silence that descended was heavier and more suffocating than the yelling. It was a living thing, thick with betrayal and grief and unspeakable loss. We stood in the wreckage of our marriage, surrounded by the smiling, innocent images of his other child, the ghost at our feast. I want you to leave, I said, my voice flat, empty, all the fire extinguished. It was a simple statement of fact. Now. Tonight. Go to your son. Go to her. I don't care. Just get out. Elena, please, he whispered, taking a step toward me, his face a mask of anguish. Please don't do this. Not now. Not like this. We can talk. We can figure this out. I took a step back, recoiling from his proximity, and the hurt that flashed in his eyes was almost satisfying. Don't you dare come near me. You have another family. You made your choice 7 years ago and you reaffirmed it every day you kept this from me. Go be with them. You don't get to have both. You lost that right. He looked broken, utterly defeated. The charismatic businessman, the doting father, the loving husband, all those personas were gone, stripped away to reveal a terrified, hollow man. He nodded slowly, a single jerky movement. He walked to the hallway closet, mechanically took his overnight bag and his car keys from the bowl by the door, and walked out without another word, without looking back. I stood rooted to the spot, listening to the engine of his car start, a familiar sound that now felt alien and threatening, and fade away down our quiet, tree-lined, perfectly normal street. Then and only then did I allow myself to slide down the wall onto the cold hardwood floor. I wrapped my arms around my knees, buried my face in them and wept. I wept for the 15 years that were suddenly a beautiful, elaborate fiction. I wept for my children, Sophia and Leo, who adored their father with every fiber of their beings and had no idea their family was already gone, shattered beyond recognition. I wept for the little boy in the pictures, Samuel, innocent in all of this, fighting for his life, a life my husband had tried to fund with stolen money and stolen time. And I wept for myself, for the woman who thought she was building a legacy of love and trust and had instead been living inside a beautifully decorated lie, a gilded cage whose doors I never knew were locked. The hardest part, the thought that kept circling like a vulture, wasn't just the infidelity. It was the breathtaking duality of it all. It was knowing that the man who read Leo bedtime stories with ridiculous funny voices was the same man holding another sick child's hand across the country. The man who remembered my allergy to shellfish and always ordered my coffee with exactly 1 sugar and no foam was the same man who had looked me in the eye every single day for 7 years and lied with every breath. He wasn't a cartoonish monster, he was a complex, flawed man who had made a monstrous mistake and then, to survive it, built an intricate prison of lies around it, and now we were all, me, our children, Chloe, Samuel, trapped inside serving his life sentence. I don't know how long I sat there on that cold floor. The sun moved across the polished boards, the light shifting and fading. My phone buzzed incessantly on the counter. A text from the party planner, a meme from my sister, a reminder about Leo's dentist appointment. The world, oblivious and relentlessly cheerful, kept turning. I finally stood up, my body aching as if I'd been in a physical fight. I picked up the photos one by one, my fingers tracing the face of the little boy. He had Mark's smile. My children's smile. He had a brother and a sister who didn't know he existed. A brother who might not make it. The path ahead was a minefield shrouded in fog. Lawyers. Financial disentanglement. Telling the children, how do you even begin to formulate those words? The inevitable, gut-wrenching questions from them, from our families, from our friends. Divorce? Or some grotesque, unimaginable form of forgiveness I couldn't even conceptualize? Our arrangement built on the rubble of our marriage? I didn't know. The future was a blank, terrifying page. But I knew one thing for certain. The woman I was when I woke up this morning, the woman who worried about macarons and violin practice, was gone. She died in this room, surrounded by these photos and these lies. Whoever had to rise from this floor, whoever had to walk out of this study and face her children, would be harder, sharper, fiercer. She would be skeptical and armored. The wife was gone. Now only the mother remained. And a mother's first and only job in that moment was to protect her children. To build a new kind of wall, a real one. Even and especially from their father. The war for the truth of our lives was over. The battle for our future had just begun.